Hello everyone, my name is Nathan Cohen. I'm a professional triathlete. I'm here at the beautiful Ventura Harbor to take you on a bike course recce for the Ventura Triathlon hosted by CalTri. It's a beautiful day. It's gonna hopefully be like this for the race. This is the beach you'll be swimming at. You're gonna run up all the way along this sand, up this ramp, and right behind me is the parking lot with the transition area. I'm gonna film this on my GoPro so you can put this video on your TV and do a trainer session, pretend like you're biking the course so you can get a little familiar with it before the race. So let's go. Okay, so this is the course walkthrough with me, Nathan Cohen, professional triathlete. I'm going to walk you through the Ventura Triathlon course and give you my tips and some pointers to help you have a better race along the way. If you don't need tips, you just want to watch the course, you can mute the audio, put on your favorite song, and 2x speed this video so you can just see the course. It's pretty straightforward, but I'm going to be dropping tips along the way. Like right there is the mountain line, just pointed to it. I'm also going to point to it on the way back. And yeah, just give you some tips so you can have a better race. So right now I am currently riding my bike through the transition area. You will not be riding your bike through the transition area. You'll be running, taking off your wetsuit, and looking for your bike. I'm just riding through because this isn't the race and I'm just showing you the course. So you're going to be running your bike all the way through once you've found it, and then right about here is going to be the mount line right there, give or take. That's where the mount line is going to be. You mount your bike after the mount line. You don't want to mount it before because that's against the rules. So just a helpful tip. For those of you who've never done this race, the bike and the run both go out on this road. The run's going to be generally towards the right side of the road, and you go out and back twice for the 10K, once out and back for the 5K. So it's going to be split right down the middle, bikes on one side, runners on the other side, just so you can keep that in mind. There are going to be lots of cones. It's going to be clearly divided, but just make sure you're watching out for people who are maybe doing the duathlon or who are in the sprint race or something like that. Just be mindful in this section. It will be a little bit narrow just with all the cones and the dividers. The reason why we divide it is because on the other side of the road is the harbor. We got a lot of restaurants and a lot of businesses there, so they have to keep that side open for traffic. But it's good. You can see there's a little bit of sand on the right side. You're going to be biking on the left, so you don't have to worry about that too much. You may have to run over a little bit of sand, but it's not too bad. A lot better to run over sand than to bike over sand, I would say so. And yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Ventura. This first part of the course, really, just to give you a little tip, is just get settled in. Maybe take a sip of your bottle. I like to have some water on my bike and just rinse off the salty water out of my mouth from the ocean and just kind of settle into my pace. Don't try and smash this first mile of the bike. You're definitely not going to win it here on this first mile. Just kind of settle into your rhythm. And this isn't the best paved road. I'll be pointing out some potholes and some steel plates in the road later on, but this isn't the best road, so it's good to just keep an eye out for some potholes, some cracks. You don't want to get a flat tire this early on the bike and just end your race before it really even starts. So yeah, just take this time, get your feet in your shoes, get settled in, find a good gear, and just kind of get into your pace at the start of this race right here. And yeah, this would also be a really good time to take a gel. I will be taking some nutrition early on because you're not going to be taking anything during the swim, so I like to take it right when I get on the bike. Maybe a gel, maybe a drink of your sports drink, or whatever nutrition you've been using. You can get awesome nutrition at The Feed, one of the sponsors of CalTri events. We even have a discount code for CalTri members, so just go to the CalTri website and look for The Feed sponsorship, and you can get a sweet deal with The Feed and pick up a bunch of nutrition. So as you can see, this road is pretty cracked, pretty crumbly in a lot of spots, a lot of potholes filled in. Right here especially, there's a steel plate. So you just gotta watch out. Watch out for your other riders. Some people may be going slower than you, some people may be going faster than you. Just try and stay to the right if possible, if you're going a little bit slower, so people can pass you safely on the left. And yeah, like I said, this first section of the course, it's a little over a mile, not the best paved, and yeah, just be careful of that. So this is the first turn of the course, right-hand turn. We will have a course marshal here guiding you the correct way to go. And yeah, you'll be turning right onto Harbor Boulevard. This road starts to get a little bit better, but there are some bumps and cracks across the road. So just be mindful of that. Maybe not the best spot to drink out of your bottle because you could launch it on some of those cracks right after that turn. So just be careful there. And yeah, this is where I start to get settled in. I'm not riding the aero bars right now, just so you can see the road and have a better view, but I will be riding in my aero bars for this part of the course. This is when I really start to settle into my rhythm, start building up my pace, and settling into a comfortable pace I think I could hold for the whole triathlon race. Now, if you're doing the sprint race, you're just going to be doing one lap of this course. If you're doing the Olympic, you're going to be doing 3 laps, but only of the looped part of the course. So this is still part of the out and back section that you only do on the way out to the loop and you only do on the way back once you've finished all your loops. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing Olympic, it'll be 3 loops. If you're doing the sprint, it's just 1 loop, then you go straight back. Another important note, right here on this road, you will be running out here for the 5K and the 10K. The turnaround is going to be more or less towards the end of this road before you get to the bridge that goes over the river. Not sure exactly where it's going to be, but somewhere before you get to that bridge is going to be the turnaround. If you're doing the 10K distance, you're going to turn around that cone twice. If you're doing the 5K distance, just once. So right over here, I'm going over onto this bike lane. This is not the course. On the actual course, you'll just be riding straight over the bridge, and we're going to have some Oxnard police, some CHP out there to make sure it's nice and safe. But as you can see, there's a little bit of traffic on this day. It's a weekday when I recorded this, so a little bit more traffic. So I'm just riding on the bridge. If you're going to pre-ride the course, come out a little bit early and check it out. I would recommend riding on this side of the bridge. That's the protected bike lane. But during the race, it'll be really safe to just ride on the road because we'll have that CHP and Oxnard police keeping us safe out there. So just a little side note, you're not going to be riding on this very narrow spot for the race. And when you are on the bridge during the race, there are some cracks in the road as part of the bridge. So just be mindful of that. Be careful. You could get bumped a little bit. So you just don't want to, lose control of your bike. Just be careful when you see those cracks. Try not to be so in the zone that you're not aware of the things that are on the road. But yeah, just enjoy it. Riding over this river is super nice. You'll probably get a really nice breeze from the ocean, and it'll be a really, really nice scene. Hopefully it's a beautiful day today. So here's me coming off the bike path onto the main road, and right about now is when the road really starts to get smooth and fast. It's great pavement. So this is when you can really pick up the pace. You'll be rolling really fast, and it's nice and wide, plenty of room. If you are a little bit slower, make sure to stay to the right and let faster people pass you on the left. But in general, stay to the right of this road. It's very smooth, very nice. This is one of the fastest parts of the course right here, so you can really get up some speed and really rip it. So one of my tips for if you're doing this as your first triathlon, try and get some nutrition early on the bike, whether it's a gel or some sports drink mix. It will really help you have a decent amount of energy for the race, and try and take it earlier on the bike. I always try and get a decent amount of nutrition earlier on so it can give me the energy to sustain my effort throughout the race. If you're doing the Olympic distance, I would say have your nutrition planned out in easy, accessible places. If you have a lot of gels, maybe tape them to the top tube of your bike so you can just rip them off, put them in your mouth. And please don't litter on the course. I always shove my gels just in the pocket of my jersey or even down the front of my shirt. Just don't throw them out on the side of the road because that's not cool. So here we'll be approaching the first intersection, and you're not going to turn left at this intersection. There will be either CHP or Oxnard Police at this intersection guiding people through, but that is where you'll eventually make the right turn on the course if you're doing Olympic distance, or you'll go straight through for the sprint, or when you're finishing your last lap of the Olympic distance race. But both races will go straight past this intersection initially and make a U-turn right about where the power station is. So when you approach this first intersection, you're not going to turn here. You're just going to go straight through it on the first part of the bike. And then you're going to go to a U-turn where we'll have a course marshal. So they'll be making sure everyone who's in the race is making that turn, and they'll be taking down numbers. So do not cut the course here, because you will not get your time for this race, because we'll have a course marshal out of that U-turn. So nobody can take a shortcut, just so it's a fair race for everyone. So this is the intersection I'm talking about. You're eventually going to go straight through there when you're done with all your laps, or whether you're in the sprint or Olympic distance race. But when you first go out, you're going straight through right here. One of the key points to remember for the U-turn we're approaching is if you're one of the slower Olympic distance athletes, maybe you're a little bit slower of a swimmer, you're going to be getting onto that bike course a little bit later, just watch out for people coming towards you when you're making this U-turn, because the faster people doing the Olympic distance race might be finishing their first lap when you're starting your first lap of the bike. So you both end up on the same road after you make the U-turn, and we don't want any crashes to happen at this race. We want everyone to be safe. So if you're one of those slower athletes who's coming up onto their first lap of the bike, just look ahead and make sure there's no one coming, or if they are coming, you can get over in enough time to make that U-turn safely so we don't have any collisions, and try to be aware of that. I know when you're in a race and you're in the zone, sometimes it's hard to be aware of what's going on around you because you're so focused on what you're doing, but just make sure when you're going around this U-turn, kind of look ahead, see if there's any athletes coming towards you, and just try and make the U-turn as safe as possible. Also, if there's someone coming up from behind you, potentially they might turn around a little bit on the inside of you, so just look around and be safe, everyone in general, around this U-turn. It's really the only part of the course where you can have any problems with anyone. It's just the one little tricky spot, but like I said, we will have a course marshal at this U-turn, making sure people get around it safely. And also, if you're flying on the bike, just look up and make sure you actually make this U-turn, because if you're going really fast and you're in the zone, you do not want to miss this turn, because you will add a lot of distance to your race. So yeah, it's really important to make sure you are looking out for this U-turn. One thing that is helpful is it's right about where the power station is, so you'll see some really tall cylindrical buildings off in the distance. You can see them from super far away, and you'll get closer and closer to it, and that's when you know you're about to make the U-turn at the power station right here. If you're going to pre-ride the course, there's actually a left turn lane right here, which I'm going into now, and just make sure it's safe. There's no cars coming, but you can make a nice safe left turn here if there's no cars coming, and this is right about where the U-turn will be on the course, more or less. So this is a good spot to look around, see if there's other athletes behind you, how close they are. Maybe some of your friends are racing you and you want to see if you're ahead of them or if you're behind them and by how much. That's a great spot of the course to look around and see where your other competitors are, and kind of think about what you have to do on the bike. And yeah, just remember, have fun out there, enjoy it. It's a race, but it's also a challenge for some people just to make it across the finish line. So everyone's in a little bit of a different spot, and you just want to be mindful of that. And yeah, just enjoy it. That's the most important thing. I love doing this race. It's close to where I live, so it's fun to come out and just test myself in a race situation on the roads that I do a lot of training on. So this is Harbor Boulevard. You just made your U-turn, and I want to give you a little bit of a tip, insider information. You can see the course map on the right. This is slightly at an angle, this road, and depending on the wind direction, you're either going to have a cross headwind or a cross tailwind, depending on if the breeze is Santa Ana winds blowing in, or if it's a coastal breeze coming off the ocean. So the ocean will be on your left right now on this road. So if it is a coastal breeze, you'll probably have more of a head crosswind. And then when you make this right turn onto this next road, you'll have a really solid tailwind. But you never know, the Santa Ana could be blowing that day, and then you could be having a pretty strong cross tailwind on this section, and then a really strong headwind once you turn on to Gonzales. So that's something to keep in mind when you're thinking about when am I going to drink from my bottle, when am I going to take my nutrition. You definitely want to do it when the wind is a little bit more to your back, and I'll explain why a little bit later. But first, I want to mention this is one of my favorite turns on the course. So you're approaching that intersection we just passed earlier. There will be highway patrol or Oxnard police guiding you. If you're doing the sprint race, you just go straight through here. But if you're doing the Olympic, so yeah, straight through there if you're doing the sprint or you're finishing the Olympic race. But if you're doing the Olympic, you follow this curve. And this is a really nice curve. It's on camber, it's smooth, it's good pavement, and it's slightly uphill, so you can really get into your aero position and rip it. Or you can even get out of the saddle a little bit if you need to stretch your back after the swim and just stand up like I'm doing right here. But this is a really fun turn. It's one of my favorite curves of the course. And if you have a tailwind here, then you can really start flying and picking up speed. And like I was saying earlier about the nutrition, if you have a tailwind on this course, which is usually the case, usually it's a coastal breeze, I like to take some nutrition here because if the wind's to your back, there's less of an aero penalty to taking your nutrition when the wind's to your back, so you'll go a little bit faster. That's one of my pro tips of this video. If you've made it this far, I'm going to start dropping way more pro tips. I wanted to save them for a little bit later on these straighter, not technical parts of the course for the people who are really watching this whole video and want to get a little bit more insights on how you can be faster. That's what I love doing, helping people go fast and have fun. So yeah, that's my pro tip. Number one for this video is take your nutrition when you have a tailwind, because less of an aero penalty, so you'll go faster. And it's also a lot safer because you'll be a lot more stable on your bike. Sometimes TT bikes with your aero wheels can be a little twitchy, so you definitely do not want to take your nutrition if it's a strong headwind, which is a real possibility on this course, depending on which road you're on. So if you look around, it is a beautiful day today. I hope it's like this for the race. We've got the mountains over to the left. I'm just taking a quick photo on my phone because it's so nice. And yeah, it's just an incredible day. There are some farm workers here in the fields, but it should be totally open on Sunday. They typically don't work on Sundays, so there shouldn't be any cars like we just passed back there. So that should be all good. But as you can see, this is a bike lane and it's super wide, and there's not a lot of people who drive on this road, so it should be really safe. The only thing you have to worry about is there might be a little mud and gravel on the right side of the road, so just be careful. If you're going a little bit slower, try and stay to the right, but if there's mud and gravel, just smoothly move over. Try not to jerk to the left because there could be someone coming really fast on your left side. It is a looped course, so there will be faster riders passing on the left. And every year that I've done this race, I always try and be really respectful, let people know I'm coming on their left, and yeah, always pass on the left. If you're going a little slower, stay on the right. So yeah, this is one of the longest stretches of road during the race, so it's a great spot to settle in, but don't settle in so much that your head is down and you're not paying attention, because as you can see, there's a little bit of gravel and mud right here. There's been a lot of rain in California earlier this year, and you just got to watch out for some mud and some stuff on the road. So I'm going to go into pro tip number 2. We talked about nutrition earlier on the course and when to take it. So that leads me into my second tip, which is try and space out your nutrition throughout the race, especially if you're doing the Olympic distance race or if the sprint distance race takes you over an hour. You want to spread out that nutrition throughout the race instead of taking it all at once. Then your body will have nutrition to absorb throughout the race and it won't get overloaded, because sometimes when you dump too much in your stomach, It could upset your stomach, or it could just be hard to take in all that nutrition all at once. So that's my second pro tip, is to spread out your nutrition throughout the race. The way I like to do this is I like to set reminders, whether it's every couple miles I'll take a sip from my bottle, or every lap I'll take a gel. Whatever it is, just have those mental reminders in there to know, okay, this is my time to take my nutrition. So one thing I'm going to be doing is on the tailwind sections of the course, like I was saying, every single lap on that section, I'm going to be taking some of my nutrition on. It's really important. It'll help you have a lot better of a race. You'll have better energy if you take something, and don't experiment with anything new. That's kind of like a side pro tip to this nutrition thing, a subcategory, if you want to say. Don't experiment with new nutrition on race day if you can help it. Get some of it in advance and practice it on one of your training rides, one of your training runs. Use that nutrition and just see, does it upset my stomach? Is my stomach fine? You'll probably be able to tell pretty quickly if something upsets your stomach, or if you like the flavor, the taste, what have you. But yeah, pro tip number 2 is space out your nutrition throughout the course and try and take it, as often as you can. Like I said, if you're doing the Olympic and it's 3 laps, I like to take something every single lap just so I'm steady. I like to sip my bottle periodically, so maybe every mile I'll take a nice decent sip instead of chugging a bunch all at once, because also it takes energy to take nutrition, because you're swallowing it, you're digesting it, all that stuff, you're lifting up your arm, you're balancing on your bike. So taking nutrition does take energy. So if you just take a little bit at a time, it takes a little bit less energy. You won't spike that heart rate quite as much, and it'll be a lot better to do that rather than trying to pound in a bunch of nutrition all at once. So here we're approaching the first real right-hand turn. We talked about the other turn earlier. It's more of a curve. You can really stay in the aero position on that first turn because it's really nicely paved and all that stuff. But this turn, you might have to get out of your aero bars on this turn. I would actually recommend getting out of the aero bars for this turn because there are quite a couple bumps coming into it. We will have Oxnard police at this intersection. It's hard to tell, but it is pretty bumpy right there. We will have some cones dividing the car traffic and the bike traffic. So make sure you go on the bike side, not the car side, because there will be some cars driving on this road. As you can see right now, this is Victoria. This is one of the main roads that connects Ventura and Oxnard. So there is going to be some car traffic, but just stay to the right. This is a nice wide bike lane, so you'll have plenty of space separate from the cars. And it's going to be a Sunday, so these cars on the right probably won't be there. Those are people who work in the field, so they typically don't work Sundays. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But yeah, just be mindful of the cars. Don't put your head down so far that you start drifting to the left. Just be safe out there, you guys. We want to be fast out there, but we also want to be safe. Safety is the number one, because if you crash, that's not fast. As you can see, I'm taking a sip of my bottle, taking in some of that nutrition and hydration, which leads me on to pro tip number 3, which is hydrate the days leading up to the race. Don't panic hydrate the day before. That's just going to make you want to pee a lot. But if you hydrate the days leading up, 2, 3, 4 days out, get some electrolytes in, that will really help you feel good for the race. And just, set a reminder, get some electrolytes in before the race. That's pro tip number 3. Pro tip number 4 is look at the wind direction. As you can see, I'm kind of pointing. There's some flags off to the right. The wind is blowing from, I guess that would be the east, blowing to the west towards the ocean, and it's a crosswind right here on this section, which means when we make that right turn, as you can see the flag right there, the wind direction is going to be blowing towards our back, which means we'll have a tailwind on this next section. So the wind is not coming off of the coast right now. It is coming from the opposite direction. So that means on this next section of road, we're going to have a nice tailwind, which will be really sweet, and It's going to be coming up that turn right after this intersection, which we will have Oxnard Police. To the right, there's not really a lot going on, so typically cars don't come from the right there. That intersection's more for the cars that are on the left. But we will have some police out there, some highway patrol, making sure you're just allowed to go straight and nobody's getting in your way, keeping you safe out there. So really appreciate that. But yeah, pro tip number 4 is look at the flags for the wind direction. So if you're not sure in the heat of the moment when you're racing which way is the wind coming from, sometimes when you're going hard, it feels like the wind's coming always from a headwind and you're always pushing into the wind. But just look around. Look at the flags on that part of the road. You can look at those flags and pretty clearly tell which direction the wind is coming from, and then you can use that in your nutrition strategy to take your nutrition when you have the tailwind and then stay tucked in and try and get low in the drops of your bike if you're on a road bike, or in your aero bars when you're going into that headwind, because when you're going to a headwind, aerodynamics matters even more, because not only do you have the wind from the speed of which you're traveling, say 20 miles an hour, but if it's a 15 mile an hour headwind, then you have that much more wind resistance coming towards you. So it's even more important to stay in that aero position and to get tucked in. Try and make yourself small to the wind in the headwind sections. It'll make you go a lot faster. So here we're approaching the next turn of the course. This is a proper right-hand turn where you're probably going to have to get out of the aero bars for it and make sure you have good control of your bike, because it's a pretty hard right-hand turn. Not as bumpy as the last one, so this one's a little bit easier of a turn, but you definitely want to make sure you take it safely. And there could be some congestion here because some people might take the turn slower than others. So just try and stay to the right if you're making this turn a little bit slower, and then kind of go on the outside if you're going a little bit faster. But this is the next right-hand turn on the course, so you'll be turning off Victoria onto 5th, and then you can look up in the right-hand corner. My speed is about to go up. I gave a little thumbs up because I feel the tailwind kicking in. I looked at the flags back there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling this tailwind. This is nice. So it makes it feel a little easier. You can take that moment. Oh, take another photo, enjoying some planes going by. And yeah, it's a beautiful day. Maybe don't take a photo during the race. I'm just enjoying such a beautiful day out here. But yeah, probably don't take a photo during the bike part of the race. You definitely want to be focused on what you're doing and make sure you're being safe with all the other athletes around. But it's just me riding alone here, so quick little photo, beautiful day. Take a photo of the mountains and the fields, and then yeah, get back to it. Okay, so I'm going to share with you, I think it's pro tip number 5. I honestly haven't been keeping track. Let's just call it pro tip number 5. And that is try and keep a steady pace throughout the race. If you're doing the sprint distance and it's going to take you maybe a little over an hour, if you're doing the Olympic, you're going to be out there for over 2 hours. So you definitely want to pace this steady. Triathlon is an endurance sport, so you have to endure the whole time. Don't be spiking your heart rate, sprinting randomly out of the corners, or sprinting if you approach a little hill. Just try and keep a really nice steady pace, something that's a little bit uncomfortable, but you think you can hold for the amount of time you're going to be on course. Generally, you'll have an idea of about how long this will take you. So ask yourself, when you're pushing, can I sustain this effort that I'm pushing for 2.5 hours or 3 hours or however long it's going to take you? You don't want to be pushing outside of that limit, because ultimately it will not serve you when you come to the run. You're going to be a lot more tired. So on the bike, just pace it nice and evenly so you can have good energy and sustain that energy throughout the race. You don't want to go too deep and go too hard early on, and then not have enough left for the run, because it's a long race. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Even if you're doing the sprint triathlon, it's kind of like a marathon. Right here is a bridge. It's a little bit narrow of the course. We will have some cones out there, I believe. So just be careful. Just quick little tip on that course. And yeah, try and make sure you're not cutting anyone off when you move over. Just move over safely. Right here is a nice section. If you need to stretch your legs a little bit, stand up, get out of the saddle. I like to do that every once in a while in the race. Just kind of stretch out my legs, my back, get out of that tight arrow position on this very slight little uphill. It's not really a climb, just a little bump in the road. And yeah, good spot to stretch out if you need to, but try not to spike the power too much on that little hill. Try and keep it nice and steady. And right here is a really nice turn coming up. It's slightly downhill, so you'll probably be going pretty fast. So just be careful and know your skill level if you need to take this in the drops or if you can stay in the arrow position. But it's a pretty fast turn, so just be careful of that. And then you are back on Harbor Boulevard now. So back from 5th Street, you're back on the Harbor. If you're doing the sprint race, this is the long, straight part of the road. It takes you back to Levis Park Drive down to the harbor. So this is the back half of the course, but if you're doing the Olympic, this will take you to the other laps. So depending on the wind, you're either going to have a head crosswind here or a tail crosswind. So it kind of depends on where the wind is blowing from. But yeah, this can be a really fast section of the course, and it's really smooth. You got a nice amount of space here, so you can really get tucked in and go fast. Speaking of going fast, most people know if you want to go fast, you have to warm up a little bit before the race, but you're not going to be able to warm up for the race if you are spending a lot of time in the morning packing your bag and doing all this stuff, and then you show up to the race late and then you're like, oh, I don't have enough time to warm up. So that leads me into pro tip number 6, which is pack your bag the night before the race. I'm going to say it again. Pack your bag the night before the race. This is one of the simplest but best tips to help you set yourself up for not only a better race, but just a better time. Like more fun, more enjoyment, because you have everything planned out the night before, and you just have to grab that bag, grab your bike, and then you're out the door ready to race. And it just gives you a lot more peace of mind, and you're probably going to have to wake up earlier than you're used to for this race to get there. So it's just one less thing to think about. You can just wake up, eat some breakfast, have some coffee, knowing your bike is already ready, your bag is already packed. Yeah, that's pro tip number 6. Right here, I'm pointing to where the U-turn is going to be. If you're doing the Olympic distance race and you're going on to your next laps, or you're just starting your first lap, just watch out for people. Watch out for people turning. Watch out for people moving over to the right. You always want to pass on the left, but this one section, you just got to be careful of people moving over to the right and just be mindful. You just want to make sure you're clear. If you're coming up really fast, let people know you're coming. And before you make that U-turn, make sure you can look out and see if there's other people ahead of you. Anyways, back to packing your bag the night before. This is something that you just can do to really help you have a better time, a better race. What I like to do is I like to set everything out on the floor: my race shoes, my cycling shoes, my helmet, my race number, belt, and my nutrition, my bottles, everything. Your wetsuit, cap and goggles. Set it all out on the floor. Take a photo of it. Great for social media, by the way. Post your photo of your transition bag the day before the race. And yeah, then put it all in your bag, put it next to your bike, and you're good to go. If you have to charge your bike computer or your watch or your electronic shifting on your bike, charge all that the night before so it's ready to go and you won't have anything dying on you during the race. So that's pro tip number 6. And then pro tip number 7 is get to the race early. You've got your bike already, you've got your bag packed because you listened to pro tip number 6. So now pro tip number 7 is get there early. It's better to have more time than you need than not enough time, because if there's more time, you can chit chat with your friends, take it easy, warm up a little bit. But if you have less time, then you're going to be stressed. You're going to be making some mistakes in your transition area, and it's just not going to be as fun. So right here, I'm just going to take a break from talking about pro tip number 7. This is where you go straight if you're doing the sprint distance race, or if you've finished all 3 laps of the loop on the Olympic distance race. You go straight down Harbor. You do not make the right turn onto Gonzales. Just go straight through this intersection. There's going to be some CHP or Oxnard police right there guiding you and making sure you're safe. There also should be someone making sure the cars aren't coming in too fast from this right-hand turn onto Harbor. So just make sure you're safe. Maybe do a check over your right-hand shoulder, make sure there's no cars coming from the right. But there should be some CHP there, making sure you're all safe and ready to go. But yeah, this is where you go back to the transition area. I would definitely recommend taking some nutrition, taking a sip of your bottle, taking a gel on this part of the course before you get to the bridge, because after the bridge, it's pretty bumpy and you don't want to drop your nutrition or lose control of your bike hitting a bump. So I would take your nutrition here. Your last little bit of nutrition, finish off that bottle, finish off that last gel on the smooth part of the road before you get to that bridge. You should be able to see the bridge coming up from pretty far away, so know, oh, there's the bridge. Got to take my nutrition, take it in before we get to the bumpy part of the road, because it's going to narrow up again because you have the run, then you have the two-way traffic from the bike. So it's all on that one side of the road, so it's going to be pretty narrow with all the potholes. Definitely not the safest place to be taking your last gel or fiddling with your bottles, especially when you're going to have that fatigue of the swim and the whole bike course under you. So yeah, that's another little side note of the course to help you prepare a little bit better and also mentally prepare. So yeah, pro tip number 7, get there a little bit early, because if you get there early, you can set up your transition area, you can make sure everything's all in the place, you can check out everything, and maybe you'll see some of your friends there so you can chit chat with them. It just makes the whole race morning a little bit easier. I've been doing triathlons for 10 years now, and this is something I'm still working on, is getting to the race early. And every time I get to the race early versus when I get to the race late, I just feel less stressed, I feel better prepared, and everything seems to go a lot smoother when I get there a little bit early. So that is pro tip number 7, which is get to the race a little bit early. Takes a little bit of planning, a little bit of thought the day before the race, but if you can execute that and get there the morning of the race a little bit early, it'll just make everything go smoother. So that moves us on to pro tip number 8. But before I get to that, I just want to mention I'm going to be taking the bike path on the bridge just because I'm pre-riding the course. So if you're going to pre-ride the course, take this bike path on the bridge. But during the race, we'll have plenty of highway patrol and police out there and course marshals. So you will be able to ride on the bridge itself, and it'll be really safe. So just keep that in mind. It'll be a lot safer the morning of the race. This is just a normal day, just pre-riding the course. Safer to take the bike lane over the river. So let's get back to pro tip number 8, which is practice transitions. This is something you can do that will save you so much time during the race. And especially if you're racing one of your friends and this is your first triathlon, you could potentially beat your friend just because you had faster transitions than them, and you don't even need to swim, bike, or run faster than them. So practice your transitions. The transition is part of the race, so if you just put a little bit of thought into it before you show up to the race, you can save a lot of time and have a faster time on the race. Just think about, where do you set your shoes to put them on the quickest? Where do you put your helmet, and how can you put it on as fast as possible? Just practice putting on your helmet really fast and buckling it. Practice taking off your wetsuit fast, and all these things will help you have a faster transition. If you look over here to the left, that is the turnaround for the run. If you're doing the 5K, it's 1 loop. If you're doing the 10K, it is 2 loops. So when you're coming off the bridge right here, you can look over to the left and you might see some runners. If you're doing the Olympic distance race, you might see some people running around there. So you can keep that in mind. That's where you're going to be. But yeah, anyways, back to transitions. If you want some very specific guidance and a bunch of pro tips just on transitions themselves. And if you want to ask me questions about how do you set up your transition, I'm going to be there the day before the race at the transition and the swim clinic to answer all your questions. You can come up to me and trust me, you can ask me anything about swimming, anything about transitions, and I will do my best to give you a really good answer. I am obsessed with transitions. I often have the fastest transitions in elite level racing that I do, so I love talking about it with people, and I can chat your ear off about transitions, and I would love to answer your questions. So come to the transition clinic and the swim clinic the day before the race. You can find all that info out on the Caltri Ventura website. We have the times and locations for those. So yeah, come see me at the transition clinic. And yeah, so right here we are making the left turn to go back onto Olivas Park Drive, which takes you to the transition area. We will have lots of cones and some police out there. It will not be all these cars. Trust me, it'll be a lot safer, a lot smoother. This is just the day before, but it will be this bumpy. We will be going, however, onto the wrong side of the road for the race because the cars will be on the right. We will be on the left side of the road, and we'll be totally separated from the traffic. We'll have some cones dividing the run and the bike, so it'll be really safe. It's just if you're pre-riding the course like I am, just stay on the proper side of the road. You do not want to bike against traffic. Even if you're in the bike lane, it's just not safe. So this is the last mile of the course. You can see me going over a steel plate right there. Just be careful. Be mindful of your other racers. If you're passing some people or if you're getting passed, just try and be safe. This is the last mile of the bike, so just take it easy. You don't have to smash it. It's better to be safe right here, not get a flat tire in a pothole, than to really smash it. So just be careful and respectful of all your other competitors when you come into the finish for this bike. I like to overspin my legs, so I actually like to ride a little bit easier on this spot and spin up my legs, because running, you typically run at a faster cadence. People will be racing maybe like 160 to 180 for however many steps they're taking per minute. And on the bike, people typically ride around 80 to 100 revolutions of your legs per minute. So significantly more on the run. So that's why I like to kind of overspin my legs, especially this last mile of the bike. Just an easier effort. Just spin them around a little bit more. It helps me mentally get prepared for that run, spinning the legs around a little bit faster and kind of easing off the pace a little bit, because the run's going to be really hard. So you don't want your heart rate to be spiked right before you start that run. So kind of I like to ease off the pace and just, spin up my legs a little bit going on to the run. So let's go on to pro tip number 9. You've packed your bag the night before. You have gotten to the race early and you've practiced your transitions. But practicing those transitions isn't going to mean anything if you don't know where the mount line is, where the dismount line is, where you're coming in from the swim, where you're going out on the run. So because you got there early, you have plenty of time to walk through the transition area. See, where is the mount line? Where's the dismount line? Oh, where am I going to be running up from the swim? Where am I going to be running out onto the run? Every year I see people running out the wrong way with their bike, or running the wrong way going out onto the run course, or just looking in general really confused when they're in the transition area. But if you get there early, you won't be confused, because you'll have plenty of time to walk through and just make sure you know you're going the right way. Because it would be terrible if you practice your transitions and did all that, and then you have a super fast transition, but you're running out the wrong way with your bike. That's not going to be you, because you are going to walk through the transition area and make sure you know where you're going. It'll just make it a lot more smooth, a lot more fun, and your friends won't laugh at you because you look super legit, like you totally know what you're doing, even if it's your first time, because you got there a little bit early and checked it out. My 10th pro tip is just have fun. At the end of the day, we're just splashing around, riding our bikes and jogging a little bit. So just have a fun time, smile, wave, give high fives to strangers, and just enjoy it. Here you can see me coming into the transition area. Again, we're going to be on the other side of the road, but because I'm pre-riding, I'm turning here. but this is about where the dismount line will be. So you'll get off your bike right about here and you will start running it or walking it into the transition area and going out onto the run. Thank you so much for watching this video of the course recce for the Cal Tri Ventura race. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to, subscribe to my channel for more triathlon content. And yeah, share this video with anyone you know who's doing the race. About a week before the race, I just want to say I'm going to do a bike setup preview. So I'm going to walk you guys through my bike setup. If you want to check that out, I'll give you some tips there as well. Have a good one.